basic thing about the Python. Is there any dependency before starting or directly jump into the Python?
Actually, Python is very low, very easy language. That's why anyone can read Python without learning any other languages. So there is no dependency to learn Python. You should be good with the logics, then you will easily get Python, because I think it's the most beautiful and simple language. 10th, 12th student also can learn it easily. So second thing we talk about in language is syntax. Like syntax is grammar on which the language we have to write a code, so that we have to follow some syntaxes, we have to follow some rules. That is called, and that's the main difference between every language, because the logics are same. If you learn a language, if you learn C, then it is very easy to learn Python, or if you learn Python first, then it is very easy to learn Java or any other language, because the principle of programming language is simple across the all languages. The function definitions, classes, oops, the concepts are same, but the syntax is different. So syntax is something like how you write your code, how you write your statements in any language. So when we are thinking to learn a language, actually we are learning syntaxes. And logics, if your logic is good, then it is very easy to learn syntax. So syntax is the language. The first topic will start in Python, that is the data types, because according to me, the program is something which takes in data, process some kind of operations on data, and then finally print out the information which it fetched from data. So to store data, to operate data, we should have some rules, and we should have some data structures. So we'll talk about these data structures and how can we store multiple kind of data in our programming language in data types. So this is the first topic in every language. Because without storing data, we cannot write a program, because program is all about manipulating the data. The next thing, we'll talk about operators. So operators is something which will operate on data. So to manipulate a data, we need operators, and there are many kind of operators which do some specific operations on data. So according to our need, we'll choose operators, and we will operate on data to find all information from data. So this will be very useful for us. And to control our program, like when our logic should run and how much time it should run, it should repeat itself, we'll learn in control flow. So in control flow, basically we learn about decision making, and second thing we learn about is repeating the code as we need, how much we want to repeat our code to do a task. So these 3 points are clear.
Yep.
So the next thing, when I think if you are clear with these steps till control flow, you are a programmer, because most of the programming finishes here. The concepts, the logics which are finish it here. After that, whatever we learn is to how we can write a better code, how can we reuse our code, so, and how can we use another how can we use libraries that are written by another coders. So we talk about functions. So function is nothing, it's just like you can split up your code into multiple chunks, and every chunk do its own work. So that is known as a function. So by writing functions, it is easy to manage your code, it is easy to write code, and also it is easy to reuse your code in future. So but the code is written basically with the syntax, types, operators, and control flow. So we'll talk about the functions, and then we'll talk about the classes. So classes comes like it is a paradigm that is known as object oriented programming, that is OOPS. In this, coders follow some basic rules to write down a code. So it's about how you implement your logic in a programming that can be future proof, or you can change it, you can mold it according to you, and it makes your code very easy to understand and very easy to extend. So to make our code extendable, we use classes, and there are two types of approaches in Python, because Python is very high level language. So you can write down all the code using functions. So you don't have to learn classes, but if you want to write down a future proof code, then you should go with the OOPS approach. So there are two approaches. One is functional programming that many coders use in Python because they don't want to make classes. And if you are very good at concepts, you follow rules, and you want your code to be future proof, then you will be using OOPS. And what is the power of Python is its tools. Python is open source language, so out there are many type of modules for every kind of work in Python. Like you want to do web designing, then you will find Django, Flask, Web2Py, number of modules. And if you want to do desktop applications, then you will need Kinter, WX Python. If you want to make Android applications, you will get Kiwi module. You want to go into the machine learning and data science, then you will find scikit-learn, pandas, matplotlib library. So this is the heart of Python. Python itself is very small and compact language, but because it is easy and open source, that's why we have so many libraries, countless libraries that we can use in a code, and we don't have to write down the logic from scratch. That's why Python is popular. If you are learning C, you have to write down your code from scratch because there are no module available. But because of Python community, we have so many modules that we didn't even have to write down a code from scratch. We directly use other modules, and we do a stuff which can be done in thousands of lines in Java or C. We can do it in Python in just fewer lines. So that makes Python easy to learn and more flexible language. So this is the overview what we're gonna do. First we'll learn about the background, then syntaxes, then type, operator and control flow, functions, classes and tools.
So I have one question. As you said, right, there is everything that we can do it from the function itself.
Yeah.
What are the cases in which we need to use the classes? Is there specific use cases out there, or is just your choice?
Actually, like you can do anything with the functions, but when you are going to make a package which will have many features or which should be upgraded time to time, then you cannot do it with the functions, because every time you want to add a new feature, you have to go there and you have to update your old functions to make it happen. But in classes, what we can do, once you created a class, you can call it parent class, and you want to add some new features or you want to change some features in the class, then you don't have to write down the code again. You just inherit the classes, and then you will change whatever you want to change in your old class. So the old class will not change in any case, and you can use your new class to do your specific attributes. So this is helpful when you are writing a code in a manner that in future we must add some new features, and we don't want to mess up with our old code. We don't even want to open our old code. So there, at that case, we use classes. And the second thing which I can use, I also prefer to use classes just because it is very it is object oriented approach. So that's why we can think of it like you have a real type entity, and then you can think about its features, and it is so much easy to implement because then you can mold together all your functions which are specific to a project. So both are the same approaches, but classes is combination of functions. So you get many features like inheritance, polymorphism, which are not applicable in functions. So we will learn about it in details when we go to the functions and classes. We'll learn about differences in this. And classes is combination of functions with data. So if you are using a functional approach, then you have your each function separate from other, and your data is also separated from functions. But in class, we bind them together in a single module. So that's why classes is very important.
Got it.
So if we talk about the Python, we already talked about. So Python is multi-purpose language we can use in web designing, graphical user interface, scripting, and other type of works. Python is object-oriented fully. Python is interpreted language. So I think you know about interpretation and compiled languages, or I should explain it. Okay. So the strongly type and dynamically typed language. Strongly typed means Python follows rules like there are errors in Python. You cannot go so slimless. It is very noisy when comes error, and it is dynamic because you don't have to do anything static in a static time. You can change whatever you want to change at any phase of your code. So there's because it is interpreted, so that's why it is automatically dynamically typed. It do task when you ask it to do. Python focuses on readability and productivity. So the main focus of Python is like you should write your code very readable. If you write a very complex code, it will not seems like it is a compressed code, just because Python use so many rules to write a code. And that's the main thing we should face problems in Python in starting, is that indentation, because we cannot write code as we want. We have to follow some rules. Uh, we cannot give spaces in Python. Spaces are very important. So, but it is very easy and it makes you productive, because when writing is typical, but when you are writing a code, after writing a code, you are going to read it again, but you can read it easily because you have followed some rules. So it will become more easy to, at a single glance, you can understand what your code is doing. So that's the main feature of Python that makes you productive. Features of Python is like batteries included. It is referred to the modules which are created by the open source community in Python. So there are thousands of modules available in Python website that you can download it, you can work with directly. Like you want to take SSH, you can use module. You want a shell, you can use module in Python, and you don't have to write down any code. You want to create a socket, or you want to create a HTTP server, you can create it directly in Python by importing a modules. So this is power of Python.
Yeah, sorry. So the module we can say is like in some predefined functions, or what exactly it's
Modules, like you want to write down a code, you want to just think about it like I want to create a socket which can listen on port number 80 and answer the client according to myself. So in C, I have to create it from scratch. I will create a socket. I will create a logic for creating sockets. I will be listening to the request, and then I will get the request data. Then according to the data, I will write my own logic to figure out what actually client wants, and then I will write a code, and I will send him data. So this is I have to do from scratch in C and other languages. But in Python, there are third-party modules which are written by another users, community users, that you can directly import in your system, and then you have to write down only few lines of code. Like you want to create a socket, it is already written in Python. So you can use that code and you can change it according to yourself, because it is open source code is available. So you can mold it according to you. So you don't have to start from the scratch. You can just implement your own logic. So you will find code already written for your specific work. So that is easy in Python. So modules is like somebody else wrote written the code for the same problem, and we can use the code because it is already written. So it's very easy because we don't have to do a lot of coding in Python. We are importing so many modules to do any task. So that makes it easy. So module is just a Python program, whatever we write. So we can use another's program to do our task.
okay.
And the most important thing in Python is everything is object. So in Python, from very first day, from where everything acts like an object, that makes Python so slimless, because in Python there are many differences from other languages. It does not do well static, just because it is dynamically typed because of objects. Whenever you are creating a variable, that's not a variable in Python, that is an object. So with every variable you have so many features. So we can understand it when we are coding it, because it's hard to explain theoretically.
Okay.
So next, the most powerful feature of Python and I like about Python is interactive shell. This makes Python so much easier in data science and machine learning approaches, because like in Linux, we have a shell to control our workflow. So we type in a command and then we get an output from the shell itself. So it's like we are interacting with the shell. We are giving a command and we are getting a response in just in time. Same as in Python, we're doing our all coding in shells. We don't have to write down a program in a script and then we don't have to run it to learning the logic. If you want to do super fast, you want to test your logic, like will this work or not in Python, we'll open a Python shell and then we'll type in our problem statement and then we run it. So it is super easy. So I think you already know what shell is.
Yeah.
So next thing is introspection. Like whenever you are doing an error, you are not following the rules of Python. Python will check it and get back to you it will say you that you are doing something wrong, and it is very specific about your errors. Because if it is interpreted, so think like you have written 100 lines of code. In 100 lines of code, you got some syntax error in line number 98. So what Python will do, it will execute your code till line number 97 and will give you output perfectly till line number 7. And at the end, when you come to the line number 98, then you will get an error and specific error like what you are doing wrong. So this is like Python will strongly check all code, and it will run it accordingly and will give you errors whenever it needed.
Okay, so does it take the rollback by itself?
Yeah, it's not like compiled languages in which you have to compile. Yeah, but yeah, you are writing 100 lines of code, and till your 100 lines are perfect, you cannot get a object code, so you cannot run the program, you cannot see the output. But in Python, you will get output of some lines, so you can guess what you are writing, and is it working or it's not working. Although you are getting error, but error is at the last, but in the first glance you will get your code running. And the main feature of Python is it is cross-platform. You can use it in Windows, in macOS, or in Linux. In Windows, it is not default language, but in Linux, it is a default language. It is already there because many, I can say like from 40 to 50% modules or some commands which are running in Linux are made by Python itself, and the automation programs which we use in Linux, like Docker container, they all are written in Python basically. So every Linux system has Python already installed in it. That is Python version 2.7. And in Windows or macOS, you can also use Python. So macOS is also have Python built in because it is also built on top of Unix. So that's why Python works in everywhere. And Python is also like Java. So in Java, we have a JVM, Java Virtual Machine. So if you install JVM in any machine, you can run Java code. The same as Python is also a Python virtual machine. So once you have installed a Python virtual machine inside your operating system, you can run any Python's object code flawlessly, and it will work the same as it's working in other system. It's clear.
Yeah.
Next thing, like Python, because it is open source like Linux. So Linux has so many flavors like Fedora, Red Hat, Ubuntu. In the same manner, Python is also open source and it has many flavors. So there are many companies who are working hard and they are integrating Python with their own goal. So there are many versions of Python or many distributions of Python we can use to learn Python. The basic implementation of Python found by Python Software Foundation is in python.org. That is the official. And after that, you can use C Python. If you are a C coder and you want to integrate your C with Python and you want power of C in Python, then you can use C Python implementation of Python. Or you can use JPython if you are a Java coder and you want to use Java library inside Python and you want to communicate with Java programs through Python, then you should go with the JPython. And what we are doing, we will be using Iron Python. Iron Python is for data science and machine learning purpose. So all kind of libraries, all kind of packages which will you need in future to learn data science and machine learning, it's already built in Iron Python. Like in Ubuntu, we get all the programs when we are installing Ubuntu directly, but if we go for the Arch Linux, we don't get any programs and we have to install them by ourselves. So this is same like this Python. If you use default Python or standard Python, you have to install all packages by yourself, or you can use one of these implementation. So we will be using Iron Python for our course because we deal in data science and machine learning most probably. And
So
the last thing is Python on Python. Yes.
so is Iron Python is from the Python org or is from some other company or something?
Yeah, it's some other company. It's a third party Python we are using. If you want to use first party Python, you will go for the Python Software Foundation and they will provide only Python. That is core. It is known as core Python. So you can use that core Python if you want, and you can also do everything with the core Python, but you have to install packages manually by yourself. And once you are using these modules, they comes with so many modules already installed, so it's very easy to directly use those modules and don't waste time in installing manually packages. We'll learn it like how to install manually packages in Python. But when we are coming iron Python, because when we are going in deep, there are many modules. So every time we search for a module, we install it, it will take at least time of 1 minute or 2 minutes, and that is very important in production. So that's why we are directly going with iron Python. And the last implementation is Python on Python. That is super fast Python. And we can say, in earlier you asked me like how Python is slow when we are running it.
Yeah.
So Python is slow because its library is written in other languages. Like it has to talk to C to use its library, Modular 3 to use its library. But in Python on Python, what Python developers has done that they have written their own library for each function. So it is the future implementation of Python. Like we can see in Python 4, the Python 4 will be totally dependent on Python because the library is rewritten in Python itself. So we can say PyPI is comparably equal in performance to Java, and it is as fast as Java.
Okay.
So this is the super fast Python.
Is it released or is going to be released?
It is released already, but it is like developers use it. It is not for the every common person who is learning Python, because it is not a stable product. It is a beta product. So it is in testing, and you will not find so many libraries in it because it is in developing phase, and libraries are added and they are translating in Python. So you will find only a few modules which are written on py, because we say modules are the power of Python. So you use many third-party programs to write down your own program. At that time, you will not get every package in py. So if you are using py, then you have to sacrifice a lot, because if say like you want to use a module and that is not available in py right now, so that will become a pain for us. So that's why we'll
Because
wait for the Python default implementation, or we will wait like py comes in market, and in 2-3 years every every developer who are writing their modules will upgrade their modules to py, and then we'll use py. But actually Python implementation is same across the whole. You learn Python and you can run it everywhere. It's like you are learning Linux and then you are using Ubuntu or Fedora or whatever flavor you want to use, but basic and concepts are same.
all right, I got it.
Okay. So there are few examples, few companies who use Python, and I only include some famous companies that you already know. So I think it's very interesting to know that Python comes in 1994 officially with its first version, but in 1989, Gutenberg Rossum started this project, and 1991 it's released it for developers in Silicon Valley, and at that time Google adopted Python, and the second company who adopted Python is IBM. So IBM and Google are the earliest companies who adopted Python when Python itself is a beta product or it does not officially launched. And they make many of products in Python. Like Google search engine is already by default at backend built in Python. And still the latest technology of Google, like driverless car and some AI systems, those codings are going into the Python. And YouTube heavily use Python's Django framework. So this is an example of Python. Second, NASA and ISRO also use Python because in Python it is easy to write down the code. So that's why, and also the range of variables is very wide. Like you can do calculations. Python comes with maths capabilities. It is written for maths and statistics. So that's why it is the first choice for the data science people, and whoever who knows math will directly use Python. Dropbox, IBM, Instagram, Mozilla, these are other companies who are using Python. Even Yahoo, Quora, Reddit, these all are sites scrape data from the other sites and process it in Python. Then we can come to the Reddit. So most of the Reddit products are written in Python. You can go for the Ansible module, you can go for the Salt module or OpenStack module. These all are written in Python. They are the automation products which is scripting goes into the Python. And then GitHub, which is the open source community. website where you can share your code that is also implemented in Python. And Cisco, the latest router of Cisco use Python scripts to operate them. So in future, the all Cisco routers will be configured by Python language itself. So we can say this is these are very famous companies. We know top 500 companies, and Python is used by very big companies, not by small companies, because it works on backend. So we can see the future of Python, like it is stable at least for next 10 or 12 years. So it's in the market, it's in a boom in the market. So I think it's worth trying once. And if you learn Python, then I think you don't have to learn any other language, because kind of it can do anything. So I think it's clear to you.
Yeah.
So as you already talk about the releases, it is created in 1989 by Gustav and Rossum. Then it is officially launched in 1994, Python 1. Python 2 comes down in 2000 and Python 3 comes down in 2008. Python 2.7 is the recommended version. Like I said, in Linux, there are many modules which are written in Python that are written in Python 2.7. And we will use 3.7 to learn over Python because it is the latest version. And now the industry is shifting from Python 2 to 3. So it's best to learn 3.
Okay.
So now we'll start with the coding. So this is the overview of Python. I already sent you some documents. That is the Python notebook and other things.
WhatsApp
So
with the download. So if it is possible, just send me it over Gmail ID.
okay, so I will send you my Gmail ID. That is Sachin Yadav, Sachin@glass.com. You can use. You can use Sachin@glass.com.
So do you want me to send the email on this email ID or what?
This is my email ID. If you communicate and if you want to communicate with anything, and I have sent you on the group the data, the files.
Mm-hmm.
In WhatsApp, I have sent you the files.
Okay.
So if you're talking about Python, then the official webpage of Python is python.org. And when we come to the Python is maintained by the PSF, and the PSF is Python Software Foundation, which is led by the Guido and Rossum. And this is the official page of Python website, and you can download it from here. Which operating system you are using right now? So that's why I can tell you accordingly. You are using macOS.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go to the downloads, and then you can go for the macOS X. And because you are using Mac, so Python 2 is already there, and you want to install Python 3, so you can download it from here. But actually, we are not using Python's default implementation. We will be using Python, which is provided by another company that is known as Anaconda.
Okay.
So we'll go to the anaconda.org, which is implementation of Python. We already talked about it, like Iron Python, and it is used for the data science purposes. So what you can find on Python's official site is that you can find the PSF events here. You can find the documentation of Python, which is precisely very good. And there is PyPI, that is known as Python Package Index. So whatever package module you want to search, you can search on pypi.org. So there are thousands of modules. They are like here you are saying like these are trending modules which we'll be using, and these are new modules which are developed by some developers here. So the main power of Python is its projects, and there you can see these kinds of modules are already available and you can download it. So like you want to create your own such as a script to log in into any Linux system, then you can use Paramiko module that is for comes with the SS2 protocol library. So by using this module, you can create your own program to connect with the any shell or any system and run any command you want to run on that system. So The whole Ansible and Docker is built upon this module, that is param IKO module. So there are thousands of modules. According to our need, we can download it from here and we can use it in the Python. And what I told about the Python is that Python shell we can use. So if you go here, you can see they are talking about Python. They are saying that Python is used for in many departments. So in web development, you can use Python's these modules. And if you are going for the graphical user interface development, then you can use these modules of Python. For scientific and numeric, you can go with these modules. And you can see here for system administration, you can use Ansible, SOAT, and OpenStack, which are written in Python. And you can see more of those because Python is very versatile and very big language. We are talking about the Python. So this is the examples of Python, like we are creating an array of numbers in which we store some numbers, and then we want to find the product of all numbers. So what we have to do, we are just declaring a variable which will contain 1 in it. And then this is the for loop implementation in Python. Like we will pick every number from this list and we multiply it with the product which we have already declared with the 1, and then we'll store it again into the product. So we'll learn it later on the course, but it is very easy. Like we have written only 5 lines of code, and in this 5 lines, in this 5 line of code, I can multiply any list of numbers. So this is how Python works, and it is very easy because you can see these 3 greater than signs that denote Python shell. So whenever you see 3 greater than sign in documentations or whatever PDF I send you, you can understand that these code are running in Python shell. And if you want to run Python shell, here also you can launch an interactive shell which will launch a Docker pod for you that you can run your Python programs. So I think this is the Python shell which is loading it right now. So you see we got a shell of Python which is Python 3.7, and if you want to learn the first program in Python, it is very easy. To print something, you have to call the print function, or we can say the traditional program we learn at the class is print hello world. So this is the first program. So Python is interpreted, and this is the shell of Python. You write your code and you want to check like whether it will work or not. So what you can do, you can just press enter, and if it is correct, it will give you output. And if you write it wrong, like let me do it wrong, and when you run it, you will see we'll get an error in Python that is saying like you are not following the valid syntax, and it is saying us let at this word you have an error in Python. So this is how Python is very flexible. Like you can test your logic directly into the shell, and then you can include it in your script. And I can say like for variable in range to demonstrate something, and we can say like print star. We'll learn it later on course, but for the demo purpose, we can use it like this. If I want to print something, I can use the 2-line code and it will print so much. And actually I've gone for the 200 times. Let me repeat it 10 times. And what I want to repeat, I just want to print a star, and that is the multiple of the variable, and the variable will go from 0 to 10. So according to that, we'll get all stars. So you can see with the fewer lines in Python, we can do much more things. Like I can import a module called OS, and I can say os.system, and I can fire any command I want to fire in my Linux system. So you can write down your Linux command, whatever Linux command you want to fire. So let's say ls-l. I want that command to be fired in my system. So this is how Python, this is the module of Python, which you're talking like what is a module. So module is a program which is already created by another user, and we can directly use it and use its functionality to perform more tasks. So here you can see I have fired ls-l, or to know in which machine I am, I can just say os.system and uname or uname -a. So this is another Linux command, and I will get like I'm using Linux, and this is the version of, and which version of kernel I'm using. So I can use now. So it's saying like the kernel 4.4 I am using right now, and it is the AWS kernel. So it's clear to you.
Yeah.
And you can see how easy it is to write Python programs. So, but we will not be using this core Python
Yeah.
applications.
No, as you know, I'm just saying, so it's fine. It's not something I'm getting it how to do it, but yeah, what you are trying to explain, I'm getting it. So it's fine.
Yeah, I think so. This is called Python shell. It is
Mm.
interactive. It's like we are fighting a command in Linux shell.
Yeah.
So we can use this Python program, download it from here, but the thing is that it will come only with the basic Python, and we'll be using more than that. So that's why we'll go to the anaconda.org. That is a third party Python provider which will provide iron Python for us. So here you can go to the download anaconda to download your package. So see, there are many libraries. These are the libraries. These are the libraries which are corresponds to the data science and machine learning or artificial intelligence. So these all are built in by Anaconda Foundation,
Mm.
and that's why we are using the Python this version, because it will directly give you the 1500 plus Python and R data science packages. So from here you can go to the downloads, and then you can download for which system you want to download, Windows, macOS, or Linux. So if you are going for the macOS, you can say I want to download for macOS, and you will get a graphical installer. So this is a 367 MB software. So I think you know how to install it. It is installer the table
That
installer in, so that you can do it easily. So for the today's session, you can download this and you can install it in your system. So that's why you can follow along with me.
sure.
And the second most thing that for creating a program, what you need is you you can tell me how a program executes from your point of perspective.
Sorry.
Can you tell me how a program executes? Like we can say we have a machine with
Mm.
kernel. That is a kernel. So kernel is a program which will control the hardware. So we want to
Mm.
talk to the kernel. So that's why I think to talk to the kernel, we'll use a translator. So we are downloading a translator. So this is the Python interpreter. So what
Mm.
Python will do? So this is,
Convert the code is in readable format for the kernel, basically machine.
yeah. So this is the interpreter we are downloading. So whatever we are downloading here, that is a translator, because we are user, we are end user, and we don't know kernel language, because kernel language is very low level language. But I want to perform a task on my system. I want to instruct my hardware to do something for me. So it is very hard to learn kernel because it is written in C language, and I don't know about C language. I don't know about the hardware. So that's why it will take so much of time. Like it will take at least 2 to 3 years in programming to learn that kind of knowledge which I can implement directly in kernel. So I cannot directly talk to the kernel to
Yeah.
instruct kernel to do something. So what I've done, I have listened about this language called Python, and people say like it's very easy to write code. So what I have done, I have just go and I have learned Python, and I think like yeah, it's very easy language. But whatever I'm writing, it is a script. So my instructions will be written in a file, but these are written in a specific language, that is Python, that will not be understandable by kernel. So if I give this file directly to the kernel, he will not execute it because kernel doesn't know Python. Kernel only know bytecode or the C code. So what I will do, I will give this file to the Python's interpreter, and for this interpreter I have many options, like we already talk about it. We can use the default Python kernel, or we can use other implementations, and right now we are downloading the Anaconda for this purpose. So what we will do, we will create a program, then we'll give it to our Python shell, or we can say Python interpreter, and then Python interpreter will talk to the kernel, and then it will take response from the kernel, and then it will show to us. So this is how Python will work. And here also Python has to communicate with other languages also, to because it's using library of other languages. So like C, many libraries of Python are directly imported from C language, and they are also imported from modular 3 language. So these are the necessary of Python. So Python, to convert your code to kernel code, Python first talk to these other languages, because it is using their library. So first it will fetch the data library code from these languages, then it will glue it together, and then it will go to the kernel. So that's my Python a little bit slow, but we are happy just because if you want to do it the same problem in Java or other language, it will take 100 lines of code to write and so many structure to follow. So it is very hard to implement. But in Python, we can do it in just 10 lines. So there we go. But the speed is slow, but it is not so slow. It is like comparable. It's not like so much of difference. So this is our development environment. So to develop any code in Python, what do we need? We need a kernel, or we can say we need an operating system, which we already have. Or in operating system, we'll be talking mostly to the shell. Okay, so we should have a shell to talk to our operating system, and then we need a Python interpreter. So we are downloading this. This is the Python interpreter. Yes, sir.
सौरभ, ये ना सचिन है ना जानबूझ के तेरे को पेन चला के दिखा रहा है, लैपटॉप नहीं आया इसको।
नहीं सर, वो बता रहा था। मैं एक्सप्लेन कैसे करूँ, ड्रॉ नहीं होता इसमें।
नहीं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, तेरा आ जाएगा नेक्स्ट वीक है ना।
हाँ, तो ये अपनी पाइथन है, एंड देन वी शुड हैव अ टेक्स्ट। सो दिस इज द टेक्स्ट फाइल। तो टेक्स्ट फाइल में अपन राइट करेंगे, उसको पाइथन शेल को देंगे, और पाइथन शेल उसे फिर अपने ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम के शेल पर रन करेगी, और जो भी स्टैंडर्ड आउटपुट है अपन व्यू कर सकते हैं। सो फॉर दिस पर्पस वी नीड a text editor. To develop our code, we need a Python interpreter, and these two things we already have. So we have chosen Anaconda here, and we have chosen, you can use any text editor. So I think you are familiar with the Vim, and most of the time we will be using Vim editor to write down our code. And if you are familiar, if you want to use graphical editors, then you can go for the Atom editor. That is super easy and compatible with Python. So for the graphical use cases, we will use Atom. And if you want to go in a glance, you can use Vim directly. So now let's go to the implementation of Python. So let me erase all of these things. So I am in Windows system, but it will be same as Linux, and I already installed Python. So let me close this and close this. So what I'm doing, I'm just opening my PowerShell, which is shell in Linux. So this is the operating system shell, and now I am inside the /user/hp folder. So first I can go to my desktop folder, and I can create a folder called online page. So that's why I will put on my all files inside this folder, and I will send it to you. In online page, we have nothing. So to create a Python program, first we need to use Vim, and I can say Vim 1.py. So the .py is the extension for Python programs, and the first code we can learn in Python is printing hello. So this is the first line I have written in Python, and now I have a file that is 1.py. And to run the code in shell, you just have to instruct Python. And when you install Python 3 in your system, because you are using macOS, you will get two versions of Python. Python 2.7 is already there. And after installing the Anaconda, you will have Python version 3. So whenever I'm writing Python, you have to write Python 3, because if you write Python directly, you will get Python 2.7, and that's why you have to write down Python 3 and then the script name. And I will be writing Python because I'm directly using Python 3 in Windows. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I say Python, this is the interpreter and this is our file. So the diagram which I have drawn, that is similar to this. Like we are writing a file and then we are giving this file to the Python interpreter, and then Python interpreter is talking to the shell of operating system, and then it's making this code to be happened and it's printing hello world. So this is called Python script, and we can use Python in two modes. One is script mode and the other one is shell mode. So to access the shell mode, what you have to do, you just have to write down Python, and then you will get a triple greater than sign, which will denote that you are inside a shell, Python shell. So this is interactive and so much easy to use. So mostly to learn our logics, we'll be using Python shell. So the same code I have written in Python1.py, I tested it here. So to learn Python, we'll be using Python shell, and to make some programs or scripts, we'll be using files to create our logic and put all our logic together to make it work. So how powerful is this shell? We can do it by seeing this code. So let me see. Let me give an example of modules. What kind of modules we have in Python? So let me import Kinter, or let me say let me import Turtle. So this is another module which is already created by some folks of Python, and I can use it to do some of my task. So what I will do, I will create a pen, and there is a function in Turtle module that is called pen. So what it will do, it will just give me a notebook and a pen with saying like you are right here. And in shell, this is the beauty of shell, that I can control it. So I can say pen dot forward 200, and then pen dot left, like we can say 90 degree, and then we can say go forward. So this is how I can do it again and again, like go left, go 200, go left, and go 200. So this is called interpretation. Like whatever you are doing, you can see it directly. So every command you are doing, you can see it in the program. You don't have to write down the whole code together and then you can run it. That's why Python comes handy. It becomes more productive than other languages. So I can give a quick demo like pen.reset and pen.speed should be super fast. So I can set it to the 0, and then I can set color to the pen. So let's say the foreground color is red and the background is yellow. And then I can say pen.begin fill. And then I can draw some shape. So I have to do it again and again. So let me do it 200 times. And what I will be repeating, I will go forward, let's say 250 points, and then I will take a left to some stiff angle, that is 171. So what it will do, it will just do the math. It will repeat the same code which I've written 200 times. It will go forward 250, then it will take 171, then 200, then 171, and then we'll get this shape. And to fill color, we can say and underscore fill. So this is Python. Like this code I have for demonstration. So if you can see it, there are only 2 lines here, and there are 4 or 5 lines are here. So in kind of 10 or 12 lines, I am able to create a graphical logo that shows like how full Python is. and we'll learn about it in later courses, so don't go for the code.
Not even looking for that. That's it.
And the most probable thing, like we'll be doing, like you have some coordinates 1 2 3 4 5, or let's say years. So in 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014 and 15. So these are the years I have, and then I have the rate like 6.7%, and then 7.8%. Then it decreases to 5.6, then 6.7 and 6%. So I have 3 and 2 5 years, and I have the data of 3 and 2 5 years data. So I want to draw some charts. So what I can do, I can just select import matplot lib.pyplot. That is the plot library of Python. So these are the modules that makes Python so much easy, because you don't have to write down the code from scratch. You will use them. You will use their functions. And then you can say like, let's give me a bar chart with the X and Y. And then you can show the chart. So what it will do, it will just create a chart for you, like in 2011, how much the growth, in 2012, what is the growth. So, and this is handy. Like again, I have written only 4 lines of code, and I am able to get a graphical visualization of data. So this is how Python modules comes handy, and you can do a lot of things with Python. So I think it's clear now.
Yes, now I'm good.
So we can start with Python. So I already sent you some files. So the first file I have sent you, that is the course file. How we'll be using the Python is the last step. That is, you will open your PowerShell or whatever shell you are using system, and then we'll go to your desired folder. That is, I have created the desktop online page, and then because we are using Anaconda Python, and that's why I like it, because it has a nice notebook that is called Jupyter Notebook, and the whole course will be learning. We will be learning in Jupyter Notebook. So what is a notebook is, you will get a Python shell, so you can write down your code, and then you can run the code, and you will get output. But as we are using any Linux shell, we cannot save the output or the commands. We can save commands in history, but will not get any output. So it same is in Jupyter Notebook. If you run it, it is a graphical module. It will run in a browser, and then you will get a shell. You can write down your code, you can run it, you will get your output, and you can save it as a notebook.
So is it more like something, a screen command?
No, it's an ID. It's like an ID. So where you can work it out, and you will get a file which you can open anytime, and you can go what you have done yesterday. So you can go quickly, and you can see what code you've written and what was the output of that code. And you can also use it for your documentation purpose. Like whatever I'm teaching you, I will be teaching you here, and I will send this file to you. And then what you can do, you can open it in your system, and then if I'm not writing some comments, you can write it down comments what you understand from the code, and then you can save it as a new document. So next time you want to learn Python, you want to revise something, you can go back to your notebook, you can open your notebook, and you can just see it. So this is the notebook. It will be open here. System is a little bit slow. So see, we have written a file that is 1.py. It is showing here, and what we will do, we'll create a new file. So we'll go for the new, and then we'll go for the Python 3. When you are creating a notebook, it's like notebook. We have physical notebook. This is them. So let me introduce you. So this is a notebook. This is our workspace where we will work. So it is saying the file name is untitled. So first what I will do, I will put that this file is according to the first lecture, and the name is data types, because first topic we will learn in Python is data type. So this file will be saved in your directory is 1.data_types. .ipynb. So this is the another extension we should consider in Python, that is saying that you are using iron Python and this file is a notebook. So whatever file you are creating with Python, it will be open only in Jupyter. So if you have Jupyter, you can open any notebook and
Okay.
you can download notebooks, and I will also send you the same file so you can open it in your system. So whatever we are doing here, whatever I'm teaching throughout the session, it will be there with yourself. Okay.
It's
So now
Jupyter.
what we, yes,
It's a Jupyter notebook, right?
yeah, it's Jupyter notebook.
Okay.
Now let's understand this notebook, how it works. So here is a kernel, which is Python kernel. So whenever you got stuck here, you can go to the kernel, you can restart your kernel, and you can connect to the Python again. Or this is called as a shell. So right now we are seeing this cursor inside the shell, and in this shell you can see this is IN. So I for iron Python and N for the nth shell. So this is, there is no number, but once you will write some code, like let's say the first program, that is print hello world, and then you will get a number. So I think this is your first shell. Now you come to the second shell. So it will save as it is. Your code is here and your output is here. So what you can do, you can write comments in front of your code, like print is used to display messages on standard output in Python. So it will be saved as it is. So next day you come here, you open this file, and you can see, okay, I have learned about the print, and this is used to display messages in Python, and this is the output of this particular code. And you want to make it more prettier, what you can do, you can change the type of this shell. So right now the type of shell is code. And how to run this, there is two method. You can go here and you can run this shell, or what you can do, you can just go into the shell and press shift plus enter. Okay, so let me write it down here. Shift plus enter is shortcut
Okay.
to run a shell. Or you will find many shortcuts here with this on the keyboard, and then you will find multiple of shortcuts like what you want to do with your shell. The second thing, we can do it here, like this is our shell, we can run it, and then you can change it to the markdown. So what is markdown? It is like something you want to mark. This is the document for documentation purpose, and if you use single hash, it will become your heading. Let's say data type in Python. And if you use double hash, and you can say like data type is some rules to classify piece of information, and piece of information into some kind of object which is specific operate or specific functions to operate on data. We'll go into the definition later, but let's say data type. So this is the first heading and this is second heading. So it will be like for documentation purpose, you can go up to the 6 headings, like this is heading 3, and same one you can go for heading 4. And you want to write down something, so you can write it down like directly, like hello. This is only for documentation purpose. So, or the last thing, like you want to write down a code, you can write down giving by the tab press, and you can say like this, hello world, and if true, print do something. So in documentation, if you want to include your Python code, you can include by giving tab, so it will be remain stream. And this is the way you can give heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. So you don't have to use your physical notebook to take down your notes. You can use Jupyter itself to make notes of Python. And in notes, you will get both things. You will get your theory as it is, you will get your code and its output. So I think it's super easy, and it is very famous among every every Python lover. So we are talking about the Python. So I can, the other thing you can use, if you know HTML, you can make it more better. So let's say I know HTML, so I will say h1 style color red, and then say like introduction to data type. So this is my heading, and then I want to note something. So let's say heading 6 I want to use, and then style color should be some color codes, and then we can ask a question, what is data type, and h6, and then I can run this shell, so it will do it for me. Or you want to include a picture from internet according to your theory, so you can type in, you can search data types in Python in Google, then you can go for the images, and then you can see here like there are many images which is explaining the Python data types. So let me find out, I think this picture is good, so we want to include this picture into our notes. So what
Yes,
do we do?
correct means this Jupyter notebook is something like to execute the function as well as to make the documentation. It is for that.
Yeah, actually what happens in data science, we cannot write a script directly. Like if you want to write a program, if you want to do some automation task in Linux, you can write down a script like, first I have to fire this command, then I have to fire this command, then I have to do this, then I have to do this. So you know exactly what you want to do. But in data science or in machine learning, you don't know what you want to do exactly, because you have a very messy data. So first you have to clean the data. So to clean the data, you have to visualize it. You have to see like how you can clean your data. At that time, you cannot write a script because you don't know your data. So to visualize the data, they have created this notebook. So
Okay.
here you can open your file, and then here you can list your file like what data is looking like this, and then you can see data here. Then you can operate your operation. And in data science, what happens, like in every step you are manipulating data, you are doing something with your data, and you are answering some questions. So documentation is very important, because you have to do a lot of work. So what have you done tomorrow, yesterday, you cannot imagine like what I have done, I have to go through it again. So when you are seeing a script, you only see the code, and I think it's not a great idea that you are seeing a code and you can think of like what it is doing. But when you have a code and documentation together binding itself, then you can see, okay, I have done yesterday and now I know what I have to do today, from where I have to start. So that's why notebook comes very handy. And I think it's very easy to maintain your code also. Like you are learning Python, so you want to store your information, it will take a time, but you can create your own notebook. You can, whatever you are thinking, whatever topic you are researching on, you can put it into the notebook. So it will become your PDF. So later on you can come to this notebook, and in a glance you can learn or Python, or you can revise your Python topics anytime.
Okay.
So this is a shell, and shell plus documentation
That
together.
I understand. Because, yeah, this is more like in Python shell, right?
Yeah.
And what is that markdown? I have work on that. I got the point.
Or
What exactly
the
is
most
related?
and the most powerful thing is also that you can go to the file, and then you can download this file as Python notebook, and you want to represent to something, you can download it as a PDF. Like you want to show your client what you have done, you can, and you documented it very well, you can download it in PDF also. And same thing, there are many extensions you can download in this file into that, and you can download it also in slides. So later on, I will teach you how to use this Jupyter Notebook to present slides. We can make slides in Jupyter Notebook also, and most of the Python developers are using this as their default PowerPoint. And most important thing is that we can download our code as .py file. So see here, you can go line by line. You can view your data. You can create some code, and you can check that code is working or not. And finally, your notebook is very lengthy. Now we want a script to run. So what you can do, you can just download this Python file, and it will become your Python code, and then you can run it directly in your system. So if you are a user which is
When we are busy, when we are saving it as a Python file, that markdown is not
yeah, then
credible.
markdown will come as a comment. Python by
Oh,
default put that thing as a comment. So
okay.
down is a Python file and
So
all mark.
during the write up when we are doing it, we need to take care of those hashes, or this Python itself take care of that comment out sections.
It will comment out the sections and it will not remove them. It will save it as it is, and whatever you are writing in markdowns, it will save as a comment in Python.
Oh,
And you want to remove it, manually. Python will not do it for you.
mhm.
Okay, so I think it's understandable.
Yeah, it's
So it will more easy, and then later on we will learn so much more method. Like this is Jupyter Notebook. It is old and it is quite while that it is in market. Right now, the latest version of Jupyter is Jupyter Lab, which while I will tell you in later classes. So this is
okay.
the latest version of Jupyter, and we will be using it in later classes where we can see you will find a shell, so you can interact with your operating system. You will find a Python shell so that you can check some code in a glance. You can also launch a notebook from Jupyter Lab, or you want to work in a file, so you can open a file and you can work in a file also. So the whole thing together will get in Jupyter Lab. But first
Mm,
thing first, let's learn about Jupyter something more. So my first question is to you, that what is data type? We will learning the first topic in Python is that introduction to data type. So what
mm.
is a data type according to you?
As per me, the data type is like the what kind of code you are working on it. Basically, the what kind of scenario is yours.
Data type, there are two things, data and type. So first, what is data, and then what type of data?
Okay.
So data is distinct piece of information. Whatever you have, that is data. Whatever information you have, you can call it data.
That's what my meaning is like data is something what my actual goal is, what I'm planning to do. Is it the data or what?
And data is something that will get from somewhere. Like for example, you have log files in Linux system. So what you will do, you will just take your secure log files, and then you want to find out like who is the user which is mostly logged in our system. Like you want to find out like which user like, spend so much time on system, or you want to find out like you are running a server which is your website, and then you want to find out like how many users are using your site at a glance. Then the data we are storing for each user request is in log files. So
Mm,
somehow we have to process the log file, and we know log files are very messy. They there are many, so much information in log files, and we are looking for some specific information in that log file. So what we will do in Python, we will open our log file in Python, and then we'll process it. Like we will find the information from the data. So what is data? Whatever piece of information you have written in written format in some file, or in any kind, like in APIs, in request. So that is data. And what is a program? That is, you will find some information from your data and you will report it to the next step or next program. So I think it's clear what data is.
okay. So data is something some like
Data is some,
information.
yeah, data is something we have with us, and we want to find some pattern from it, and we want to store it or we want to process it. So let's
Mm,
say you are a shopkeeper, you are selling your products, and at the end of the day, we want to say like how many items I have sold, and in my warehouse what are the quantities left for each product. And if it is below 5 or below every measure, it should trigger an alarm to yourself that you should buy more of those items. So we have to make a program. So that's why
okay.
we know every shopkeeper has a software that they are using. So that software is generating data. Or you can say if you click a photo from your camera phone, that is also data. There are thousands of sensors. They are gathering data and they are storing in some particular format. So data is like everything. Whatever we can see, we can feel, that is data. Without data, we cannot make any decision. Like today, what we know, how we act, that's all depends on what data we have consumed throughout our life. So data is something, data is information, but the information is so much huge information, and we want to do some operations on that data to gain specific information. That's why we do programming. So then we are coming to the second thing, that is type. So data is anything. Data can be some information we get that from sensors, some pictures, some log files, or something we are creating, a user is giving us input, that is also data. And the second thing is type. So what do you think, what is a type in general sense?
Type means the form of data in which we are getting, or the category.
Yeah, correct. Type is category. So you can say type is something like we have many kind of data. We have some integer numbers, we have float numbers, we can have raw data, we can have text files, we can have Excel files, we can have video files, audio files, we can have some bytecode, we can have script. So there are any type of many formats of data. So type is referred to the format, like in which format you are storing the data, and that is very important because we know every application works on a particular format. Like in Excel sheet you cannot open a text file, or in a text editor you cannot open a video file, because those programs are written to process specific format of data, or we can specific kind of data. So kind is like type, or type is like format, like in which format you have stored your information. So the most common format is we store information that is in CSV file. So that says a format, like I want to store some data, like there is a user one which name is Sachin, and his age of 23, and his country is India. And then I'm saying there is some user called Sam, and his age is 25, and he is from USA. So this is how I can write down my file. So I am following some rules here. What I'm doing, I'm separating each column by comma. Okay, so the first rule is like my fields, my actually attributes are separated by comma, and I can name those fields as, like the first field is ID, the second field is name, and the third field is age, and the fourth field is country. So now whatever that I will store in this file, I will store in this particular format.
So in Python, or separator in general, is there a predefined format for the separator, or we need to define somewhere?
Actually, in Python, every language its own data type. We'll learn it in Python what we have, but this is a common example. Like every Excel sheet is in this format. So as a programmer, you know what kind of data you are dealing with. So if I'm a programmer, I know like this is my data, this is how my data looks like, and now I have to process this data, or like I want to find out what is the average age of my clients, or what is the average age of my users. So that's why I can update my content according to age, or I can make some decision that can support my company to move forward. So what we will do, I know like I have to separate the data from comma, then I have to find out the third data of each row. In each row I will go for the third position, and then I will add up them, and then I will divide from number of clients, then I will get the average. So this will provide me that how I can write my code. So if you don't have insights of data, you cannot write program. So to write a program, first you have to understand like how data is looking. But this is the general data, this is a file. In Python we don't have this kind of data type, we don't have any separator, we don't have any kind of data type to process this file. We have some modules that somebody has created, somebody has written a program to deal with this kind of file. But when we are talking default Python, we have some types, and these types are like categories of data. So let me talk about that. Let me write down some code. And data types in Python, let's saying it. The first data type we'll be learning is numbers, and Python support three type of numbers, that is integer, float, and complex number. The second thing we'll be learning about, that is string data type, like that can be strings. Third we'll be learning about list, then we'll be learning about tuples. Then we'll be, the most amazing data type in Python is dictionary, I like it very much. And then we'll learn about set, which we have studied in mathematics. That is simple. And then we have coding sets. And then finally we have Boolean data type. And there you go. You have files, which is the above example is a file. So we have files. So this is the data type in Python. Like these are some ways. These are some ways you can store your data in Python. So the first type is number. So whenever you see a piece of information that is include only numbers, you can use this type to store them. And why data type are very important? Because the operation which you will perform on data, that depends on the type of data. Like each data type has its unique operations. Like in set, I can find out how many common people are there, how many distinct people are there, or how many combined data types are there. So these are the operations of set.
Okay.
In strings, what I can do, I can convert a string into lowercase, I can convert a string to the uppercase, or I can split string into multiple substrings. And I know in number, because this is mathematical, so I can operate number data type with the mathematical operators. Like I can do plus, minus, multiply, divide. So these are many kind of operations I can perform on numbers. So each data type has its own unique functions to operate on data. So that's why it is very important to categorize your data according to its type. Because if you stored a number inside your strings, then like let me give an example. So how we declare strings? Whenever you see double quote or single quote, that is a string in Python. So let me say there is a 5 and I am adding 5 to the 6. So according to the mathematical rule, if 5 is a number and we are adding to the 6, it should come 11. If I do it, I will get 56. Why?
String
Because it,
from
yeah, because it's concatenating, and this is because it is a string. It is not a number. So the type of data is now, the category of data is string. And when I have two strings and I use plus sign between them, they concatenated together. So the same thing is happening here. But I think that this is number, the result should become differently. So that's why I have to store it differently. I have to store it directly like this. So this is integer. So now the type of data is integer here, and the type of data is string here. So it totally depends on the operations. Like this plus is an operation on data, and this plus is also operation on data. So the same operation have different results, and it depends on the type of data. So if I have a string, it will concatenate, and if I have a number, it will add them up. So it's, so you, I think you will understand like what data type is. Data type has its own specific processing operators to process data.
it is like a display format also, right?
Yes. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, so my question was like for the all type of data types we have like number. That just now we put the example of number and string. So these are different format for
Yeah, these are different format. These are the ways we can store data in Python and process it. So each type has its unique unique
identifier.
tools, like how you can store it and how can you process it. So number has its own their different rules, like how you can store them and how you can process them. String has their own ways. How can you store in Python? How can you declare a string? And what are those? What are the operations you can perform on strings? Then we learn about the list. That is also a collection of data. So how can you create a list? How when and where you have to use list. So these all has its your own capabilities. So I think we start with the numbers, and once we'll finish with the numbers, we'll get to know that. So let's start with numbers first. So the first data type is number. So what is a number data type? It is like anything which is made up of 0 to 9 numbers repetition. So whatever data you will see, that only comes 0 to 9 numbers in that we can say that is a number. So there are a bunch of examples, like you can say 5.67 or this number here, or you can say some complex number. So this is plus 5j. So these all numbers, what those have common in it, because they all are repeating 0 to 9 digits in them. So that's why we categorize them as a separate type, and those type is known as numbers. So whenever you see a data coming like this in Python, you have to store them in numbers. And but here also I can see there are three kinds of formats. So the first format is saying this is a real value, we call it float. This is only numbers, digits, we'll call it integer. And here you can see there is something is going on. There is a one character called j, and there is a plus operator. So how you will read it, this first part is different than its second part. So it is written in a format like there is a real part plus there is imaginary part, and this j is denoting your iota. So in mathematics we have three type of numbers. One is integers, second one is floats, and third one is complex.
Sorry, what is it? J is denoting what? Iota?
Yeah, it's iota. We have complex numbers in mathematics, and it is only supported in Python. In every language you go, you will only find integers and floats, but in Python you have third data type, that is complex, because it is used in mathematical fields. Like if you want to do some research on mathematics, you want to find out some roots of equation, then it is very compulsory to use complex numbers. So we'll not be using it more often in Python, but we can say that they exist in Python also. That's why it makes a default language of and some research or data oriented fields, because it can process complex number also. So the complex number is whatever we have learned, the complex or imaginary numbers. So this is the real part, and to denote the imaginary part we use j. So it's saying like this is the imaginary part and this is your real part. Because if I don't write j, what it will do, it will add this 5 into this particular number we have seen above. Like if I say 5 plus 6, it will add up to 11. But if I put j here, it will become a different number. It will say 5 is your real part and then 6 is your imaginary part. It's coming with j. It's clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So there are three type of numbers we can store. So first let's talk about some, like we are saying we have some data and then we want to store it somewhere. So where we can store data, we can store data in a memory. So there is a term we will often use, that is buffer, and buffer is denoting your RAM memory. So we know it, like whatever program we are running right now, it will be stored inside our RAM because we are accessing it intuitively, and when we switch off our devices, the RAM will go out. So every program creates its temporary space. So right now I am running a Jupyter notebook. It is running inside RAM, and whatever data I'm providing to it, it is storing that data inside RAM and inside some specific location. So we refer this location as a buffer. So buffer is something where we store our data. But we see in Linux also, or in hard disk, without format a hard disk, you can store data. It is not compulsory to format a hard disk. But why we will why we format a hard disk to store data? Can you answer it?
To get the format, specific to get the data in specific format.
Yeah, right. Like we have many file systems. We have XFS, ext, we have NTFS, FAT, and these all file system has their own cons and pros. Like how much you can store, how much data you can store, how much speed you can get, how data you can how fast you can search into you can look up into the data. But this is not the main reason. The main reason is different. We know that without creating a file system, we cannot store some information, or we can store. If I ask you, like without creating a file system, can I store information inside the hard disk, or it is compulsory to create a file system then store information? What is difference between these two statements?
As per me, I think we should have some file system. How will you treat it if we will not enter the file system type?
Yeah, it's kind of right, because according to programming and according to me, we can store data in a hard disk without any file system. Storing data is not a problem. You can have a data and you can
But
put it anywhere inside your
we'll,
hard disk, but will not retrieve it later on.
yeah, that's my
we,
question.
yeah, we cannot find that data, we cannot find that information again. So storing is
Mm.
not a problem, retrieving is a problem. If you store some data somewhere, because there are many sectors, there are many chunks inside our memory. So right now your writing head is going to the some sector and you are putting that data into that particular sector, but next time you are booting up your system and then you want to read that same data again, you don't have the locations, you don't have coordinates of that sector to fetch that information. So somehow and somewhere we have to store that information. So that's why we can look up that data again in future. That's file system from Sandy. So what file system does, file system what file system do is that they just create a partition table and then just say like, okay, you want to put some information in memory, I will put it for you, but I will write down that information inside my table. So I will write down like from which sector to which sector you have put in your file. So next time if you ask me for the same file, I will go there and I will pick that file from the memory and I will give it to you. So you can relocate your files. That's why we create file system. And if we are not creating file system, it's like we are going in Kumbh Mela and we are dissipating. So we cannot find that piece of information again. So I think it's clear to you. Hello.
Yeah, it's fine. I got it.
Okay, so you got it. So
Can
that's
you
why we create file systems. So to take care of our data. So can you tell me if I do some basic task in Linux, like I'm creating a file called hello.py and I'm putting some data inside it and I save it. Then again or
mm.
let's say like I am creating a directory called Sachin. In the same folder, I'm trying to do task again. I'm creating again Sachin directory. Then what will command mkdir will do, it will say like this directory already exists and you cannot create the same directory.
Mm.
Why it is so?
Because linking issue. This is
Yeah, and
how
how operating system knows that I already created that same name of files? What is how system stores files in Linux? How? I think it's the inode number.
yeah. But
and
the your question
what
is for the identification for the what?
Yeah, it's question for the identification. Like I'm creating two files with the same name and I'm unable to do
Mm.
that. Why? Because
Mm.
they both have same ID. And
Mm-hmm.
how ID is generated, ID is generated according to our data. So whenever you are saying Sachin, it will create a hash value for it. So what is a hash
Okay.
value? Hash value is a unique number for each piece of information, and if information is same, you will get a same unique number. So this is how
Okay.
system take care of files. So it will generate a unique ID for every file, and then it will store it file to that ID. So again, you are creating the same data, then it will generate the same ID, and first it will look up into the table, and then it will find, okay, this ID I already have. So you cannot put same information twice in a same ID. So
Okay.
the same in same manner in Python, whatever you want to store, you have to create some identifier. So that's why we call them identifier. So what is identifier? Identifier is a some symbol that will associate you with the data you have stored inside a memory. So this is the
Yes.
inode. You can refer to the inode in Linux. So the same thing is like you are storing some information in your buffer for some time, and next, right now you can say like I am storing 5. So 5 is stored inside the memory, but later on I cannot use this 5 again because I haven't created its identifiers. So what I will do, I will write it on like x equal to 5. So what is happening here? The 5 will go inside the memory
Okay.
and it will go in some specific space, some specific sector, some specific address in memory, And what is X?
Mm.
X will store that information. X will store that address inside it. So that's why we'll call X identifier. So
Mm.
X will identify us like where is your data 5. So that's why later on in the next cell you need X. You can say print X. So here I am not using. Let me run it again and then let's say print X. So let's see here we have stored 5 inside X and then I'm printing X. So the main thing to note here is 5 is not stored inside X.
How is
5
identifying print
5
X as
is,
an identity?
yeah, it's an
Because
identifier. 5 is just to fetch data.
Mhm.
So
No, that I got it. Like the when we have means like in shell we used to put the variable right with the dollar sign or as an identifier as a variable or the value
yeah, is a
flat
variable and a
value.
value. So if you are going to the deep down, you will see that X not storing 5. X just storing the information like where is 5 in memory. So
Yeah.
it's only identifying in table like where you will find 5.
No, that I got it. But for the next command when we are putting it in the print, is there
Yeah,
any identity? Is there any means like
because it's
what to
let's
say
say
is
it's not giving us identity because when you say id of X, it will give you the identifier. And this is a print, this is a function, this is abstraction, this is Python's inbuilt function. So we don't know how print works. We only know like if I put print and then X, it will give me the data which I stored inside the X. So I can teach you like this is X is a variable or container and you are putting 5 inside a container. So whenever you print a container, it will print what value it contains in itself. But I didn't tell you that thing because this is not happening really. This don't happens in language. What happens in language? Like let me draw it for the better understanding. So what happens, like you have your storage, so this is your memory and there you have store 5 and let's say it's a sector, its sector is 1 2 3 4. So in memory you have a sector called 1 2 3 4 2, and this sector, this is the id of your RAM. Like in RAM, this is the id which will be look up, we will look up into the partition table, and table will say okay, you are coming for this id, then go to this address 1 2 3 4, and at 1 2 3 4 there is a data called 5. And what we are doing here, we are creating a reference that is X, and X is referring us to the id. X is not
one.
referring to the 5. Okay, so 5 is not stored inside X. X is just a reference. X is an identifier which is identifying the id of the data. It is saying like whenever we are saying print X, what it is doing, it is saying us like you are printing X, so there should be an id, so it will give you an id that is 1 2 3 4, and then you will go inside your memory at the location 1 2 3 4, and then
That
you
was
will get
my question
5.
basically. That was the question basically means when we are using the print command, how the Python
Yeah,
interpreter is
how
is
print
an
is working.
integer or an identifier.
So
So
let
is
me
it
clear it.
string or an identifier?
When you are printing X, actually what happens, I told you the first thing, like Python is bit different than other languages because it is interpreted. So when you are printing X, everything is object in Python. There is
Mm.
nothing like variable, nothing like anything else. So this X is also a variable, and
Mm.
you can just say, you can just print type of X. So there is two functions I'm talking about in Python. The first one is id and id of X. So what id of X is doing, it is showing you the information about memory, like where your data actually is. So my data actually is
Mm.
in this location. And what is type function? This is the super class of Python. Everything
Okay.
we make in Python is associated with the type. So you are saying like type of X, then it will tell us that this X object is attached to some class. And if you remember if you remember C language from your past, you will say like this is the way we put some integers in C language. We write int x semicolon to define that this x variable is type of integer. Their memory is fixed. There you can say okay, this x is having some address of that particular data. But in Python this is not the case. In Python what is saying, this x is an object. So
Mm.
it's just an object which is related to the class integer. And when you are going to the class integer, there is another function which is called directory. So let me say, let me print. So let me print directory of let's say integer class. So there is an integer class in Linux. Sorry, in Python. So you are saying like, let me print the directory of integer, and it is showing the all the methods and attributes a class can have. So what is a class is, like I already told you, class. You are asking what is the difference between class and the functions. So function is a single function, a single block of statement that can perform a task. But what is a class? Class is a combination of many functions as well as the data. So in class, you can store your data plus many functions that are used to perform on that data. So here you will see from this ABS to this 2 bytes. These are the built-in functions you can use with integers. So let's say I have an integer x, so I can use any of them. So to use them, I have to put dot. So this dot is known as axis specifier, and it is used to access any of these functions from class integer. So let me say I want to use this function that is called wrapper, and what will happen? So if you say underscore wrapper, this is a function, so that's why you called print. That's how we called this wrapper function, and you run it. So what it is doing, it's just printing 5. Okay, so whenever you print, whenever you say print x, what print does? Print just call, because Python is dynamic, it will just call x underscore str underscore. So you can see there is another function called str function. Okay, so whenever you are printing x, like let's say printing x giving us this output, and the same output I can get by x dot render str render, and if I called it, I will get the same output 5. So this is how print works. So when you are saying, okay, I'm saying this x only contains id, not data, so my meaning is that when you are printing x, so x is not printing the id of x, it's just taking the id from x, and then it's going to the location, and then at that location it will find the 5, so it will printing the data, not the id. So to see the id, we have another function, that is id function in Python. That's how you can see like what is the id of x, what id actually x is referring us to. And when you print x, what happens? First print function calls Python's inbuilt function, class inbuilt function, that is str function. That str function will get the id of the data. So later on the class we will learn about the like you can take help on this. Let me take help. So you can go, you can just say in Python, help me to find out what is the function str is doing. Okay, so here some interesting information you will see, that is self. Like it is saying whenever you are calling this one underscore str underscore, it will pass some self inside that function. So but you will see here I am not passing anything, I'm not passing any information inside this str function. So how it is happening? Because this x will pass this id. So when you are calling x.str function, it will say x.str, and then it will pass id of x. Okay, so when you are passing id of x, then you will get this id, and at that id you will get that data. I think it's looking complicated right now because we are going in deep down into the memory. So for this moment, you can only understand that x is an identifier. So whatever you store inside x, it will give you the same data if you print it. And later on you can change it. You can say like x is Sachin, and then you can print it also, but the information is changed. Here you print x and you print
My
type
question
of
is
x.
the same. Even right now, my question is just one thing. When we are
Okay.
putting something, if I'll not give x equals something or whatever, it's going to print the x only, right? As in you can say string, right?
Okay. Let's let's do it. Let's print Saurav. Okay, so you are saying this, like if I don't give anything and I just print Saurav, so what it will do, it will give you name error. And why it will give a name error? Because in memory or in this scope of Python, there is no identifier called Sora. So we haven't created any identifier till now that name Saurabh. So that's why Python is saying, okay, I have looked up whatever you are doing till now. I have looked every step behind, but I didn't find any identifier with the name of Saurabh. So why you are creating identifiers? Because we cannot remember the data. The data can be very long. So that's why we are creating identifiers. So that's why later on we can associate our data with identifier and then use identifier to access our data. It is clear,
Okay.
or any
Yeah.
doubt?
But when you were printing something like basic thing, right? Initially, we just like you print hello world. At the time, I also printed, right? How that works?
Okay, so have you noticed this?
Yeah, double quotes.
So what I taught you above, like whatever we write inside double quotes, that is another type of data that is called string.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a string, this is not identifier. So this is how you differentiate between identifier and strings. So whatever you write inside double quotes, it will be interpreted as a data, and
Okay.
it will it will print the data as it is. And when you don't pass quotes, it will be entered as a identifier. So what Python will do, it will go into its memory table, and it will look up for your identifier, like Saurabh identifier. It will go there, it will search like, is there any identifier with the name of Saurabh which user has created before printing this Saurabh. So he haven't find anything. He haven't find
Okay.
any identifier with the name of Saurabh. So it's saying like, okay, there is no identifier you have declared above which stores some information that name is Saurabh. But in case of hello world, that is a piece of information. I can do it with like this also. I can do print 5 and it will print. I don't need any identifier because directly I am having the data. I'm not fetching data from memory. But in case of identifier, what I have done, I have just stored the information for till. Like I say X hello world. So I stored this information in memory, and later I want to use it. So here I don't know what is information, so I will put X. So what it will do, it will search for an identifier that is named X, and then it will find X. So it will go to the ID of X, and then it will find the data, and then that data will come to print, and print will print that data. So the data we stored in X is hello world. So this is
Now I
how.
got that. Let's continue with the double quotes and all. That's what my initial question was. I
Yeah,
was differentiating between the string or
yeah,
the integer.
it is differentiating between the identifier and string. So we called it identifier many times. I will call it containers because it contains information, or variables. That is the traditional name of these containers or identifiers. So later on we'll be using these three. These are equal. So if I store a name that is Sachin Yadav when I print it, so I will call name as an identifier, and I will code Sachin Yadav as an string. So to move forward, I can say rules of identifier. What are the rules that you should follow when you are declaring identifier? So the first rule is this, that you cannot declare an identifier which starts with a number. So you cannot say like first name equal to something. That's incorrect in Python. And we told about like we have to learn some syntaxes and some grammatical tools of Python. So this is the first rule we are learning, and that is known as identifier rule. So what identifier rule says, like you cannot start any identifier which has one starting in that name.
So is this the one or is it any number?
Yeah, any number you cannot use number at a first location of identifier. So what we can see here, like we cannot start a identifier with a number. So this is the conclusion. This is a rule we should remember throughout the course. Like we cannot create an identifier which has number at its first position, but we can do it. We can do it like this: name one equal to Sachin.
This should not be the first location.
Yeah, the first place you cannot use number. At second place you can use anything. So name 2 you can say like Saurabh, and then you can say okay, I just want to print name 1, and then I want to print name 2. So I can use it like this, and then it will print both the numbers. So the second rule is we can use numbers inside in between the identifiers. So the rule is that first rule is that the first rule of identifier is we should start the identifier with character. Okay. The second rule is in identifier you cannot use your special characters like name dollar sum equals to 1. You cannot do that. You cannot use any yeah, you cannot use any special character inside your identifiers. Okay. The second rule is that you cannot use special characters inside name of identifier. But there is an exception in Python. For that exception, I will first give you the third rule, and that is name 1 equals to Sachin. This is also wrong. Can you tell me why it is wrong?
Space, no
Yes.
space, right?
Yeah, the space, the white space. So in the third rule of identifier, like you cannot use spaces in identifiers. So whenever you want to declare identifier, you cannot use spaces in between the name of identifier. And one exception we are talking about, that is Python is like you can say underscore is special in Python. So underscore is a special character, but it has a special meaning in Python. So we can say like underscore has a special meaning in Python. And here you can see it here, like there are many functions I have shown you. They are starting underscores. Okay. So we will learn about it, like what is the meaning of them. They are called magic methods and why it is so. We will learn it later on. But for now we can say, so we can use underscore in or identifiers. So it will give you one advantage that you can use underscore in your identifiers. So you can create identifier called like name underscore 1, and that is the information is searching, and then you can say name under 2 and the information is Saurav. So I think it's more easy. You cannot do it in other languages. Like in Java you cannot create a variable like this, just because we cannot use special characters in identifiers. But Python allows underscore, and it creates a meaning, like in place of space we will be using underscores. So your variables will, this will make your variables more readable. Okay. So this is how we can use it. And the final rule is whenever you are creating an identifier, give it a reasonable name. Reasonable reasonable name. That's why we can refer to it later. So this meaning is like it's not compulsory. It is up to you that we cannot create. We should not create like this. Like, oh, we should not create variables like x, y, I, j, because they are not meaningful. So whatever you are creating identifier, it should be meaningful. So we would be creating some identifiers like name. So it's saying like I can understand it. This is a name, so I will find some name in it. Or we can say like address, or we can say like my first property. And we can support this Python. So we should be creating variables like this. So that's why later on program you know like what this contains. So it should be meaningful. Okay. So we have learned like how to store a piece of information inside a Python. So to store a piece of information in Python, we should use containers, or we can say we use identifiers, and these are the rules of identifiers. But we say piece of information, and this has types. Piece of information has a type, so it depends on the type, like your identifier of which type. So if I say x equal to 5, and I will print type of x, it will say me that this is an integer. If I say x is hello world, and I print the same thing as type of x, it will say this is your string. I will say x is 4.5. I will say what is the type of x, it will say this is a float class, or you can say 56.89 plus 88.78j, and then you can print what is the type of x, and it will say okay, this is your complex type. And later on we'll be learning about some more types like list. This is a list. List is nothing, it's just a collection of data, so you can put your data together. You have so much of data and you don't want to create each separate variable for data points. So what you will do, you will put your data inside a container, a big container that is a list, and then later on you can say print and type of x, or you can print x. So it will say the data is inside the class type list, and this is your data. And this is how the all types I'm talking about. So there is a tuple which is same as list. There is a key difference between tuple and list, and we'll talking about when we cover list and tuples in Python. But you can see here, so it's tuple. My favorite, that is dictionary, and I think you are already familiar with if you know JSON. I, I got to know that you know AWS. So in AWS, whatever rules you are creating, you have to create a JSON data. So what JSON is just JavaScript or the computational language in which you have to store a piece of information in the form of key value pair. And in Python, we called it dictionary. So it's I think very simple for us. So you can say like I want to store name, and let me say like I want to use Linux and K version, or you can say kernel underscore version, that is 4.4 I want to use, and then I want to create a yum repo. So I will say yes, create a yum repo. So this is a piece of information. I glued it together, but for each entry, I should have a key and I should have a value. So you can print here like what is the type of X, and you can print the data itself. So you will get the data easily. So that's why this is, and I think we will be focusing more on more dictionary because it is versatile. So by creating dictionary, we can understand JSON better, and you know the all languages, the common language between other languages is JSON. Like whatever I'm doing in Python, I want to send that data to Java program, then I will encode my Python data into the JSON, and then I will send. So that's why Java also can process JSON. So every language can process JSON. That is a default internet language nowadays, and dictionary is same as JSON. And finally, we go to our sets. So you can say there are many points I'm storing in Python. Print type of s, and I print s. So I will ask you a question. You will tell me like what's happening here. So I'm storing some data 111 2 3 1. And if you observe it better, you will find first property of set, and we will talk about other properties in later in classes. So later then there will be a separate class for sets. So can you tell me what's happening in sets? It's a collection of information, but what's happening?
So basically, keep putting the unique values.
Yeah, correct. The first rule of set is that it will only contain unique values. So you cannot repeat information twice in a set. So many times we want to be unique in our data, then we'll use sets. And fuzzy
I
sets
think
are similar to the sets.
I don't know, something issue with the net or something.
I think it's an internet issue. You are getting noise or something.
It's breaking. Noise was fine. I'm not able to understand what you're saying now. Just now.
Actually, I think it's an internet connection issue. It's pretty slow. So that can be.
It might be.
Now it's clear.
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So, like there are various forms. There are various forms we can store data inside Python, and we have to be mastered in these forms because we can say data type is the heart of any language. Data structure and data type alone covers 50% of every language, because if you don't know how to store data, where to store data, which types should be used to store data, and how to process data in different types, then you cannot create a program, because the whole program depends on data, and the data depends on its type, and the type tells us that how you can process the data. So every type we have go through it. Every type has its unique functionalities, its unique features that should be considered whenever we are dealing with the real world data. You are going out, you are having a real world data, and you want to operate it. So you have some objectives, you have some questions like how you want to operate it. At that time you have to think of it like, should I store the data into integer, should I store data into the string, should I store it into the list? So that is the question, like how should we store the data? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have come so long. Let's talk about again. My internet connection is unstable. That's why we are facing so many errors. So we are talking about numbers. There are three types of numbers, and I think you understand it. One is integer, other one is float. So this is float, this is integer. So whatever distinct, that is integer. Whatever combined with the dot, that should be float. And there is a special type. We'll not be using it more often, but we should consider that we have it too in Python. That is complex. So first we understand like there are three formats we can store numbers. We can store either it into the integers, we can store it either into the floats, or we can store it either into the complex. Now let's talk about the processes, like how can we process numbers. So all numbers are processed by mathematical operators. Okay, so all numbers have its mathematical operators. So let's say 5 plus 6, you can do it. You can do 5 divided by 6.7, or you can multiply it with the complex number 5.6 plus 4j. Okay, so this is how we can
So
mathematically create.
there is a special requirement for this complex numbers, or why they
Yeah,
are?
there is a special requirement, but that requirements comes from the mathematical field. If you are into the mathematics, you should know complex number, but you are not dealing with the mathematical formulas, then you should not. There is no need of this complex number. That's why, uh, except Python, no other language has complex numbers. But Python is a scientific language. That's it. Python known to be a scientific language. It used in physics and science in every project. Every project that is in mathematical research, that is in scientific research, they use Python, their default language. That's why we have this kind of numbers, because in mathematical equations you will find some extra number that is imaginary part. So it's not real, it's imaginary numbers, and there is a lot of mathematical background of these numbers, like when you are coming to the thermodynamics, when you are going to mathematical equations, finding about roots of some equations, that comes into the form of complex number. Like in past 200 years there are so many classical mathematical problems that are not solved, just because we don't invent this complex number. they are the mathematicians says that it is not solvable, it is unsolvable problem. But then somebody comes with the name complex, the idea with the complex numbers, and then we have solutions of those problems. So this is totally mathematical and statistical term. And I think whatever I teach, it will not come in our course, because we are not doing mathematical or scientific calculations. More than we are doing some real
Definitely.
problems that will not include complex numbers.
Good to listen.
Okay, so the next we will learn about strings. Hello world. Okay, so you can say this is a string. So I think this is the most valuable data type in every language, because it has so many functions, and this is the real type. We have information written in every text file, in everywhere we see strings more often than numbers. So we have many functions also. So I told you a function called dir. So you can do dir on s, or there's, you can print it to get more beautiful output. So you will see here, these are some special methods, and these are called magic methods because they are starting with double underscore. And actually these are the operators that we can override, or that has to use to compare the data. So we'll learn about them later. But these are dedicated methods you can directly use to as strings. So you can see in if we are going with the integers, so if I print directory of integers, so direct is something that what integers have in it. So if I go to the integers, they have different functions, and strings has different functions because each type is different, each category is different, so we have to process them differently. Okay,
Okay.
so here you can see there is only denominator you can find out from numbers, you can find out numerator, so they are not so much useful, that's why I didn't talk about them. But in string there are many functions that are very, that can be very useful in very various manners. So you can say if I have a string x that is in small letters hello world, to process it I can directly say let's change it to the upper cases, let's make it title case. Okay, and let's put it in the center of star, and it should be 1,000 characters worthwhile. Hmm, so it's saying like put into the 1,000 palaces and just fill it with the stars. So let me take little example 50. So what it will do, it will enclose your string inside a, or you can use split function that will split up your string. So there are various kinds of information you can do. So we will learn about them later on the course. I think for today it's enough. We've gone through the introduction of Python, and then we talk about like what are variables, what are identifiers, what are the rules to create identifiers, and we also dig into the data types of Python. So I think you should do some research. You will go, you will find like what data types and data structures are in languages, and why are they so important. And more important thing is that you should install Python, Anaconda Python in your system, and you should be keep running up your Jupyter
Yeah,
notebook and do the
definitely.
same
I'll
thing
make sure I have the things in
I
place.
have done.
And initially, 1 or 2 weeks, I'll give you more pain because the scripting is like pain for me.
Okay, so
But
what we can do it here. I will send you this file. Okay,
yeah,
and your assignment is to follow this file, and you will do all these things in your notebook, and you have to send it to me. So that's
okay,
why I will know. Okay,
definitely.
you are doing it well.
Okay, sure, definitely.
Okay, so any questions, any doubts,
No,
whatever.
just needing help. Oh, that I can take care. Means like, oh, tomorrow I'll do the Python installation and this kind of Jupyter and notebook kind of thing. What you taught me today, I'll try to replicate.
So one more information can you provide me that in which field according to which field we should learn Python? So I will be specific to that field because Python can be used in many fields, and from now three
Yes, so
years I am
basically,
teaching Python.
Yeah, so basically, if you'll ask me, I'll say I just want to be on the specific field in terms of what domain or area I'm working with that, right?
Yeah, so I want to know the domain because my examples and my
Yeah,
modules
so
will be
basically,
according
I'm
to
more
that
like
what is
my
model.
whole motive to learn the Python is to take care of my infrastructure as a service part that I used to have in Lambda in
Okay.
AWS basically. And on with that, for the configuration management tools, again, the DevOps side or the automation of code release and everything. So these are the areas I'm targeting majorly. And because reason for that is pretty simple because these things we are using in our environment. So it'll be easy for me to correlate with these things. And at the same time, I can review and do the things, stuff my own. So that's the reason.
Okay, so we'll go according to that field also. So I will put all the modules and whatever I will learn about them, and then I will tell you that how can we can use Lambda services. I know, DevOps I also
Yeah,
know.
lambda is there and the configuration management also the chef is there. The recipes that used to be created in the Python only.
Yeah, that's good
And
because it's an automation language. So you can what you can do, you can automate your system, your stuff, and also I will send you one more notebook that is automated boring stuff that is good for this particular scope. And now I know your scope, so we'll be learning according to that scope. So from
yeah, so
very
basically
very
my domain
control
is to
so
have
we'll
that
take.
DevOps thing because the thing is like those things if if I focus on those things I can replicate in my environment. So once I'll do in my environment, I think it'll be easy for me to get maturity in this thing.
Yeah, we'll be learning Python going forward.
Yeah.
So from tomorrow onwards, I will teach you in Linux system. Today
Mm.
I
Well,
teach you Windows. So more we
no,
can
that's
actually
whatever
we
source.
can do more things with Linux also because your all features going to be Linux oriented. So that's why in Windows we
All
cannot
right then.
use many features.
Yeah, so you can send it out to me this file, this notebook. So and the remaining thing I'll do means whatever I can go through over, and I'll try to go through again these topics, whatever we covered. So get an idea about that. In case if
Okay,
something
sure.
is there, I'll check out with you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm sending this file to you, and then you can discuss with me and have a good day.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a nice session. I said, even though I'm very
सचिन
new, but it
सचिन
was something
Yes, sir.
I can get with this
सचिन
session.
फाइल मेरे को भेजना भाई है ना
हाँ हाँ आपको भेजूंगा सर
हाँ
ठीक है ओके
चलो सो जाओ सब अब
So tomorrow the same time.
same time I think we should start from 6 to 7:30.
Yeah, miss anytime when you guys free because for me is in anyways free time for me, so I can join
Okay,
anytime.
I will update Gaurav sir and then they will
Yeah.
update you.
So whenever we are gonna get ready, just ping me on the WhatsApp. I'll join it anytime.
Okay,
8:30,
okay,
basically 6 or 6:30, whatever time.
okay, I will do it. And actually, I recorded the session also, so I will send you the recordings also.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.